Over the past week or two, I've been having this conversation a lot with friends and people around, and it's the same patterns that happen over and over again. And I think that this is something that we all do. It feels like it is because it kind of resumes or, you know, creates a pattern out of all of our problems. And is that we go through life and we create these barriers for people. We create these barriers to not feel vulnerable, really. And we start to be worried about letting people in to our life. We start to be worried about embracing life like we used to because we had experiences where pain happened. And as much as that seems to make sense, right? Like somebody broke into your car and now you put extra security. That makes sense when it comes to things, right? When it comes to life, though, there's an issue there because what you're actually doing, right, is that something happened. And now that security that you're putting extra on your car, on yourself, is actually just you blocking yourself off from the world. And so, in a response to somebody hurting you, what you've done is that you're making yourself pay. And to give an example, is that I have a friend who was in a relationship and he was with this girl, and pretty much he felt like he was in pain. He was hurt from the outcome of how things ended with them. And now he has this bad idea, which he applies to women in general. He has this point of view, which pretty much, right, if we're honest, really works just as to keep ourselves safe and to protect us from feeling a negative feeling again. But by doing so, by approaching everybody with this point of view, by approaching every other relationship with this point of view, like all girls are the same and people are just this way, and maybe like, you know, that's just how they are. Well, how can we expect, first of all, something else, right, from them? How are we ever going to allow ourselves to experience something different if that's the expectations that we have? But also, the second side of this is that we're actually living in pain ourselves. We're living with this idea of people, which is a degraded idea, right? It's in a world where it's an idea which just really is confusion because you have these emotions towards people. You'd like to do good. You like to give good to people. But now we have this thought, this idea, this belief, which is negative about them, as if they're disingenuine and they're this, that, the other. And so that is just a conflict. You're creating conflict within yourself and pain and confusion, trying to avoid, with the intent to avoid pain, conflict, and confusion. And so how does living in a constant state of pain is going to prevent you from living in pain, from experiencing pain, from avoiding even the risk that you might be hurt by people? And in a way, right, which we can agree on, is that it's a certain form of fear, right? It's only fear that will allow you to do that. It's only fear. There's not really in between. If you weren't in such fear, then you would allow yourself to embrace life, people, and emotions again in that way. But because of this one situation, even though all of these other good ones, now you've blocked yourself out from the world, and you've blocked the world from yourself, as if you were guilty in that place. You're making yourself pay constantly, over and over again, over something which you didn't do. You didn't cause yourself that. So, because if it was you, you could forgive yourself. But because you have trouble forgiving somebody else, or not necessarily, you don't have to forgive, but because you have trouble treating this one particular situation and dealing with it in a certain way, now you hold this belief to the general group. And I don't think that makes a lot of sense, to be honest. And I'm not saying that I'm not privy to this. I'm not like safe from having done this. I'm just saying that we got to be aware that by doing that, we're just stopping ourselves from experiencing life to a higher place. Because the more we think, the less higher of an experience we can have of life. And so these types of belief, these types of thoughts, which make you have to go through every situation and friendships and relationship with all this math and thinking about, well, to do this, I'm gonna have to do that and do that because I don't want to look dumb, I don't want to look stupid, and blah blah blah, and all this math that you're doing really is just blocking you from experiencing life in a good way. And another way to look at it, a solution to this problem, is maybe just to approach life and to take the risk to be genuine. Genuine doesn't mean that you're like, at risk. I mean, yes, you're at risk to be hurt, just like you would be if you held the belief which you think protects you. But to be genuine means that you can approach people with the best intents that you have, because you understand that your actions represents the perspective that you have of the world. It doesn't mean that by giving, how does me giving you put you in a position of power? I'm the one who's giving. If I have $1 million and I give you from $1 million, how does that make me weak if I give you? See, it doesn't make sense for that. But when it comes to treating people good, we think that it does, right? But that's the problem, is that maybe we're giving for the wrong reasons. That's something else. But to continue on the idea is that if we would just have the courage to experience life again and to live in a place where we might feel like it makes us naive, but at least in that experience we're not living in pain while going through that process. We're not living in constant conflict. We're not living with this, being torn between all this math and all these intentions that to want to be good. We could just be good. And as soon as we start to feel like, maybe this person isn't as genuine as you are or we are, we can just withdraw, right? And at least in there we have the self-respect to have allowed ourselves to be who we are and to not hold back from the world and to not get in our own way because of these things. Because that is selfishness in itself. Because look at how amazing all these other friendships that we've had have been. Look at all these moments which were great. All of these, times we have with other friends and other times and where life was great. But now because of this one thing, you're going to go and switch on the world? It's kind of crazy. And it kind of makes us look selfish, ungrateful, and honestly like kind of cowards, because that's all it took, really. It took one situation for you to not be who you are. Imagine everybody around you just switched because of one situation or one person out of the whole group. Everybody's acting good. But it's one person did something to you and now you change forever. Now you can't be who you were anymore. That's kind of messed up. It's like in class. If one kid acted up and now the teacher makes everybody pay for it, would that make sense? Not really. So why are you making everybody else also pay with yourself for things that one person did or one situation, right? It doesn't actually make sense. I know this whole thing is easier said than done, but it has to be said, because life is only this long. It's only so long. And so the bigger risk here is to go through life with this low level experience because we were scared that somebody might hurt us. We were scared to look dumb. It's really an ego thing, right? And I think it looks much more courageous and much more authentic. It's much more real to just get up and try again. Isn't that the whole motto we work with, right? Like, never give up, blah, 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 this whole culture. But here's an example where a lot of us fail, to get up and try again. Because you're not really giving up on people only, you're also giving up on yourself. And you're saying that who you are doesn't have a place here, right? It doesn't have to come from people, the love that you're searching for. It can come from you. And you have a place here. And you giving this love into the world doesn't make you weak. It actually demonstrates that you have it in you where maybe other people don't. And you don't have to operate on the love that you get out of people. Nobody said that. You just have to do what feels right for you. And if you feel that things start to go wrong, then it's your job to withdraw. If you things start to feel fishy, then you maybe walk away. That is your responsibility, but that's no matter how you act. You being good to people doesn't mean that, you know, they will automatically treat you wrong, and you walking up to people expecting them to be bad people doesn't mean that they still won't hurt you or you won't feel pain anyways. So because you're actually always in pain by already believing that they're these bad people. So anyways, thank you for watching. See you guys on the next